Hey, welcome to Youthology Live. This week we are dealing with the topic mental health and adolescence. Man, so much research has been done on this recently, especially with this rise of the pandemic. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the problem that exists, but we're going to spend more time. I'm going to give you 4 practical ways that we can combat against this rising mental health crisis with our teenagers. You know, I was reading an article just recently from the World Health Organization that stated pre-COVID pandemic, only 19% of patients in mental health facilities in the United States were adolescent. 19% adolescent patients in mental health facilities in America. Since COVID, post-COVID pandemic, we've seen that rise to 39% of adolescent percentage in mental health facilities. More than doubled. So we know the problem exists. We can see it, we can feel it, we're experiencing it on a regular basis. But what do we do about that? We know that now, rising from 5th or 6th globally in adolescent death cases is now suicide, moving from 5th, 6th, depending on the study you read, to now 2nd or even 3rd. Okay, so when you look at this rise in even suicide caused from depression and unstable mental health, I'm sure other things too, but what we're seeing is post-COVID, this rise in mental health flags that are going up. And it really concerns me. And so I want to spend some time this week talking about this. One of the surveys that I just read from the Allstate Foundation talked about how students feel stressed, nervous, and uncertain about the school situation. Now we know that in America, schools are pretty much on lockdown. Some are in hybrid. Some have very little attendance, maybe by last name, 2 days a week or whatever. But there's basically a national lockdown in education in America, in in-person education. As a professor, we have handled that at the university level quite well. And to give students that option of the hybrid, online or seated instruction. And most of my students are choosing the seated instruction, right? There's no replacement for that. We know that. But when you move into our public schools here in America, and even the stress and the pressure that's on some of our private schools by the government to close, now we have this year-long problem that is starting to show research of rising mental health issues. So what do we do? I think there are 2 things first that we see rising mental health bring a gap, okay? The first one is the socialization gap, okay? The socialization gap. And when you remove students from that setting, the setting with their peers, we have to begin to deal with all of these socialization gaps, the emotional gaps that come with this, the schedule gaps that come with this, the secondary and primary tasks that students were basically had a framework for with school, when they were getting up, when they were getting on a bus, when a friend was picking them up, when they went to first hour, study hour, lunch, practice after. That schedule, that framework is gone. And so now students are having to process tasks that were basically set for them, as a schedule. And so we've seen that part of their lifestyle, because of the format change, that part of their lifestyle add to the stress of this mental health, the withdrawal from their friends and social interaction. Listen, we were created as beings. Listen, God created us as beings who need each other. I'm sure you understand that. There are so many one another verses in the Bible. You cannot escape it. And what has happened is Now that we have been in this isolation, we're seeing a socialization gap with our students, and behavioral issues and emotional issues coming. Let me give you the second gap, and that is the educational gap. Oh my! Listen, the educational gap in America is considerable, because now, as a parent or a coach, now as a youth leader, it's not so easy to see the educational gap that's there with our students missing. You know, we might think everything's okay and they're just growing up and they're another year older, but what about the gap in language? What about this stop in learning terminology and dates and history and procedures and problem solving? All of this stuff that takes place in a seated instruction. You know, add in this educational gap, you add this loss of resources at home, right? Parents who are like, man, I don't even know what to do, right? Maybe students have been online and they've gone through the Zoom classes, the Google Hangouts and all of that, and now they're finished, and anybody else have this online fatigue? Oh my, online fatigue. And now it's hit the home, and parents don't have the resources to teach. And so what do we do, right? That's the problem. Sorry to depress you, but what do we do? Listen, these should be the best days of a teenager's life. I really believe that. Living in America, living in this moment right now, should be the best days of a teenager's life. So what do we do? I believe there are 4 things that we can do that will help us communicate to teenagers how to rebound from this rise in mental health issues. Okay, number 1, let's talk about health and wellness. I'm just going to take a minute on each one of these and wrap this up. Number 1, health and wellness. You know, I mentioned earlier with the schedules and the framework for organization gone in a teenager's life and having all of this time in isolation. One of the most important things we can do is to get teenagers valuing health and wellness. What is health and wellness? It might be physical, it might be mental, it might be social interaction. It could be sleep or nutrition, how well they're eating, you know, adding that kind of routine to their life, exercising, walking, biking, okay? There are so many things that can be done, even during a lockdown. There are so many ways that we can do that. So we need to increase the health and the wellness of our students practically. The second thing, and man, this one is maybe a little more difficult to do, but it's emotional intelligence. Wow. You know, we place so much emphasis on informational intelligence, like the informational quotient, you know, our I quotient, our intelligence quotient, that information. We put so much emphasis on that, but what about our EQ? What about our emotional intelligence, that EI? You know, how we handle our emotions in any given setting, how we problem solve, how we respond to things that happen in society. There are things that we can do to increase, listen, there are things that we can do to increase resilience, okay, communication, problem solving or resolution. There are things that we can do to increase those. Things like reading stories with our kids and having them repeat those to us, and problem solving in a story. Wow, what went wrong here? You know, and what it does is it gets students to realize I am part of the solution, right? That emotional intelligence. Listen, communication is so important to emotional intelligence and emotional strength, okay? Let me give you another one. Another way to combat this rise, this out of control rising mental health in adolescence, and that is The importance of family. I don't know that any of us understood the kind of disintegration that the family was going to be going through in this moment. Like, I can remember saying things like, listen, this is going to be great. This time off, and 5 months, after that March, really that lockdown really hit, man. 5 months later, and we're all together, right? And I'm like, this is going to be so good. You can see some of our posts that we've done on this. Just go back into April and May, and we talked about how to do this. But we, again, have to hit this, because it didn't get any better. Not from what I'm seeing. And, the research isn't in. And so sometimes when we go to the anecdotal or the stories, right, that people don't really see anecdotal as research or facts, right? But let me tell you something. When anecdotal becomes data, it becomes data because there are so many anecdotals, right? Stories that have been told over and over and over again. And so what we have to do is we have to create a stronger family unit. We are not just raising a fatherless generation anymore. We are not just raising a motherless generation anymore. We are not just raising a fatherless or a motherless generation anymore. We are raising a fatherless, motherless, and siblingless generation. That family structure is gone. And so we need to bring back the family table, conversation at the meal. We need to bring back family devotions and prayer time, even if it's just praying with your kids every night before they go to bed. There are so many little things that we can do to add to the structure and the health of our families. Because hear me, these simple little things that we're talking about, the health and the wellness, and the emotional strength and emotional, quotient, and the emotional intelligence, that's great. Family is where they're living. This is the place, the setting where they are the most. And so we've got to increase the health of our families. I'm sure you understand that. Let me give you the last one, okay? And that is simply a Sabbath. Yeah, a Sabbath, a rest. Oh man, I wish we could really unpack the importance of the Sabbath, because God knew what he was talking about when he called us to a Sabbath. God knew what he was talking about when he said, 6 days you shall work and 1 day you shall rest. It's a powerful read in Exodus chapter 20. When you read through the commandment, listen, it's not even a suggestion. God called us to rest. Remember the Sabbath. Keep it holy. And I really believe that, what we've done with our teenagers? We've said to them, by the way we think and the way we do things in our society today, we've said to them that busyness is production. And it's really not. And so we have to learn to increase the rest in our lives and to find space for it. Maybe it's something like taking the mornings and not having the phones on, or maybe it's at night at the table, or maybe it's every Friday, you fast social media every Friday. I don't know. There are creative ways that we can do that. One of the things you could do is on Sunday when you go to church, most of you that go to church, yeah, okay. Listen, take the afternoon and sit and talk with the kids, and in between games, or homework and all of that. Spend one-on-ones with the kids on Sundays. Take an evening at home where it's just rest, where there's no TV, there's nothing, and there's silence in the home. Man, it's so important to do that. Listen, I hope this was a help. Hope this was helpful. You know where to follow us. Go to all the socials, and you can join us on all the socials. You can read this at youthology.com. You can watch this at YouTube. You can listen to this on the iTunes podcast, or you can just follow us on socials and get little bites of this and all of the highlights of these moments for Youthology Live every week. So again, thank you for joining.